On the circuit court appeals that occurred, have we been keeping track of what happened?
No, there's no notice, so you have to go and find those cases. So it's kind of, you know, it's going, doing the research, finding the pins, knowing what pins to look
Who's
for.
representing us?
Frantic.
Okay, so they'll have paralegals,
We'll look into it,
Yeah.
but we haven't done, I mean.
Right, so it's unlike PTAP. So PTAP, if you have an assessed valuation reduction of 100,000 or more, we get notified as a taxing entity of that reduction. The circuit court, there's no notification, so we must then go out and find those cases.
So we really don't know what's happened in the past.
Well,
We're
they can
gonna
do
try
it.
and find out in the future.
Yeah, we've been looking at some of the, based on this information, we've been gone back and looked at some of the taxpayers that we're seeing getting these refunds of what they've been doing for the last several years.
Is there a correlation between the no notice requirement and the increase in the circuit court?
I would say there might be, but there's no.
That's our observation.
There's, yeah, and I think that the other thing that we've just found out is the notification is 100,000, so there's also a lot of PTABs that are going in at 99, 900,000, just under the notification threshold.
And actually, George Dalianis' father, who was here tonight, ours, is the one who represents us on this. There's a reason he's having like an attorney.
Okay, I have a question. Okay, if this is a 3-hour answer, I'll take it offline. But I have a question on the price volatility report. So we don't manage our own investments, right?
No, they're
So-
managed by the township treasurer.
Okay, so the township treasurer?
Yes,
So, and that's a separate board that's elected, right?
yes.
Okay, so when, I guess one of the things I was thinking, just because of lost money over this period of time, how do we monitor, I mean, are we like totally hands off of that, or
This is
that?
a can of worms. This is a deep discussion that the board.
So
Okay.
what I can do is provide you some information, because a number of years ago, we would have them come in and talk about their strategies and stuff, so I will update you in terms of,
How do we go over it at the next finance meeting?
Yeah, that would be
And discuss
great.
it in general.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would love that, because it's just something that I don't think I have the full.
And it's something unique only to Cook County.
it is.
Oh, it's unique in Cook County?
Yes, and they have very tight parameters, so there's a whole story here.
Yeah, okay, so, thank you, that would be wonderful to do it at the next finance meeting. Thank you.
Anything else from you? Okay. We'll move on to instructional services. Sean?
Yeah, so tonight we have a brief presentation for you on our transition to our integrated math curriculum. This was shared with Ed Committee, but there's been some updates, and we also want to share it more broadly with the board. So with that, I'm going to introduce our math team here in the district. Melissa Dudich, who's the Assistant Principal for Teaching and Learning at Maine South, but also the Math MCC Chair, will make the presentation. But we also have with us tonight Mike Smith, Maine West Math Department Chair, Dawn Bodden, our Maine South Math Department Chair, and Jill Sweetwood, Maine East Math Department Chair. So as we go through, if you have questions, feel free to ask them. Like I said, it'll probably be about 5 or 10 minutes of presentation, and we can update you from there. So Melissa?
Thank you. Well, thank you for inviting us here to share the really exciting work that we're doing in mathematics across the district. Thank you, Sean, for introducing all of us. We started this work about a year and a half ago in the fall, and I really love this quote to start. It says, "Never have the broader aims of mathematics education been more important than they are today when mathematics underlies much of the fabric of society." And so a year and a half ago, we started having some deep conversations as a leadership team about what we really wanted our students to experience during their 4 years in high school in mathematics. And that sparked a lot of questions about some of the strengths that we have currently in our mathematics programming, some of the areas where we'd like to grow, and ways in which we can go about that. So this is taken from one of the most recent publications by our national organization. And it talks about really what mathematics empowers students to do. And we often only think of the first one. It expands professional opportunity. So that's on a lot of people's minds, as how will this help my student get into college, get into the career they want. But I think it's really important that we think about the other two major goals that we have as well, which is that we want students to be able to use mathematics to understand and critique the world. And especially in the data-driven world that we are in right now, there's a lot of opportunity to do that. And there's a lot of information out there that I think we don't often think of as mathematical, but it actually can be analyzed from a mathematical lens. And of course, we want students, especially us math educators who are very passionate about our content, to experience the wonder, the joy, and the beauty that comes from thinking about the world mathematically. And we know that all students are going to kind of engage in that at a different level, but we want all students to have that opportunity to see that. So we talked about ways in which we were going to do that. And first of all, mathematics learning has to look a lot different in order to accomplish those goals. And what you'll see in classrooms today is that mathematics is much more collaborative than it's ever been. We know that learning is a social activity, and mathematics is no exception to that. Mathematics is much more creative than often people see it. We often think of it as lots of skills and drills, but it's actually a very creative subject. We want students to understand the connectedness of mathematics, so it's not just algebra and geometry, but there's a lot of overlap throughout mathematics. And because of that, it's a very visual subject. So again, when we think about our previous mathematical experiences, we often have these visions of pages and pages of equations to solve, but every one of those equations has a relationship to a graph that you could also analyze. It just depends on the information that you want to come out of it. And so those visual representations are really key. And we also talked a lot about the importance of depth over speed. Again, there's a lot of research coming out about time tests being really detrimental to students' mindsets. And we want our students to really think about the depth of the mathematics learning and not be pressured by the speed. Because at the end of the day, our best and most famous mathematicians were not the fastest mathematicians. That's really not what it's about. So when we tried to kind of summarize what we wanted students to experience in their 4 years, we came down to this visual at the left, which is that in whatever changes that we make, we want to make sure that there's a balance of conceptual understanding, procedural fluency, application, and reasoning. And at the heart of all of that, we want students to walk away from their 4-year experience having productive dispositions about the subject of mathematics. So they don't have to go into a STEM field to feel good about math and know that it's a useful discipline. And we think by doing all of those things that we're going to serve all of our students no matter what path they choose after they leave us.
So ever since the Common Core State Standards were implemented in 2014, we've been excited about the possibility of moving to an integrated math curriculum. Integrated math is a curricular framework that integrates the 6 domains of the Common Core State Standards. We will teach the Common Core State Standards in the sequence that connects the standards and skills naturally, instead of grouping them arbitrarily to courses like algebra, geometry, kind of unnaturally. Both the traditional and the integrated pathways use the Common Core State Standards, and students have the same opportunities at the end of the 3-year sequence. So AP Calc, Stats, dual credit, all of our rich opportunities there. But the concepts are better connected. Our teachers started this process by looking at the NCTM 8 mathematics teaching practices and agreed that a switch to integrated would result in better teaching, students with a better understanding of math, and students better able to apply these skills to solve problems. I don't want to bore you with all the 8 mathematical teaching practices, but some of them involve the implementation of tasks that promote reasoning and problem solving, meaningful mathematical discourse, posing purposeful questions, and supporting that productive struggle in the learning of mathematics. With these 8 teaching practices in mind, a team of teachers and administrators chose a curriculum from Mathematics Vision Project, or MVP. That is task-based. It starts with a problem all students can access and can connect to. Students engage in developing understanding tasks to surface their thinking and to learn from others in the class. Solidifying tasks are used to make sure all students have common working knowledge of the skills, and then practice tasks help students practice these skills.
Yeah, and the picture actually that you see on the slide is from the professional development experience that all of our teachers took part in and got to experience as a student what the Mathematics Vision Project curriculum was like.
Can you talk a little bit about the connection with our elementary partners too, relative to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So with that MVP training, we invited all of our sender schools to send representatives. Some of them sent more than just a representative. They sent their whole department. So it was a great opportunity for us to connect with them, because that's really hard for us to do, to have everybody in the same room together. So we had a lot of rich conversations about what we're doing in mathematics, and then a lot of learning together about how we're going to implement this. And there's been obviously a lot of continued conversations. We're still doing a lot of communication with them as they and we both plan for the implementation, because the sender schools will be implementing this Math 1 for the students that would normally take that in the middle school. Integrated mathematics is not really a new concept. It's used in essentially every other country in the world. It's very unique to the United States that we would divide our curriculum into this compartmentalized algebra, geometry, algebra 2 sequence. When the Common Core was initially developed, there's actually an appendix at the back where they put an integrated pathway on there. So and it says in the Common Core, integrated pathway, every other country but the US. Traditional pathway, the US. And so they thought by doing that more schools might adopt it, but it's been kind of a slow transition for people to really take hold of that because of the work that it involves to really rethink your curriculum. Because, as Mike mentioned, it covers all of the standards, it is aligned with all of our national and standardized tests, and it is strongly supported by our national organization, NCTM. We visited some high schools locally that have adopted this. Throughout the state of Illinois, there are high schools that are doing this, and nationally. There have even been some states that have decided that the whole state was going to use an integrated mathematics program. So one of the things about moving to an integrated curriculum is only one small piece of the change that we're making, because we knew as we had these discussions that changing the curriculum isn't going to make the change that we really want to see. So the curriculum is just one piece of it. We've got this, Mathematics Vision Project. It's based on the standards, but that also means, as Mike mentioned, that our instruction has to change. And that's what we love about the Mathematics Vision Project, is that it's very task-based, which means that it's student-centered. And as we talk about curriculum and instruction, it's only natural that our assessments would also have to change. So a lot of the work that we've also been doing is around developing proficiency scales aligned to the standards for the new curriculum. And all of this is really setting a foundation for the competency model that we're pursuing in the future. And competency, it's probably going to take several years to really get there, but we've kept that in our vision the entire time that we've been making these changes, so that we're ensuring that we're setting a foundation for a competency framework within this new curriculum.
Another change that we're implementing is, in the past, our students that took 8th grade math we would use their math scores and teacher recommendations to place them in either an Algebra 1 or an Algebra 1 Part A, which basically means we take Algebra 1 and spread it out over 2 years. So we are no longer going to do that. Instead, all of our incoming freshmen that take 8th grade math will be coming in and taking Math 1. And what that's going to allow is, or I should say, in addition to that, some of our students that have maybe lower math scores or need a little bit of extra support, they would potentially be placed in a foundations problem-solving class to kind of assist their learning in Math 1. And what that's going to allow is, in the past, because they had to take their Algebra 1 over 2 years, they wouldn't get to Algebra 2 until their senior year. Well, now that they're all going to enter Math 1 as freshmen, then they will have an opportunity to take some of those higher level electives their senior year. So increasing opportunity for all of our students.
Okay, and this is our timeline, sort of where we've been and where we're going. So during the last school year, it was already mentioned, we visited some area schools. So we visited Downers Grove, we were at Lamont, we were down south in District 230, which is Stagg and Sandburg and Andrews. We were there. We were up at Lakes, and so we took some teachers with us to some of those visits. We also spent a lot of time reviewing curriculum resources, and it was a teacher committee that worked with us, and that's how we sort of decided on that MVP curriculum to use. We also had some PD for teachers. We sent a lot of teachers to some Joe Bullard conferences, which ties in really nicely with the program we're using. And then last summer, we got some summer curriculum money, and a lot of our teachers, especially our early implementers, our Math 1 teachers, started working through the MVP curriculum in Math 1, starting some planning and just really kind of diving in deeper to what that curriculum is. This year in 2018-19, we gave presentations similar to this. We went out to 62, 63, and 64, and in their buildings gave presentations to parents on what is coming. As Melissa mentioned, we had the 2-day MVP training. There were actually 2 separate dates. We had the actual writers of the curriculum who came in to present for us. And in addition to inviting our feeder districts, we also invited special ed teachers. We had other administrators there, so it was really a huge group of people. It wasn't just the sort of math teachers. We had coaches, instructional coaches there. And then using our PLT time this year, we've also had a Math 1 group in each building that's beginning the work in planning, getting ready to implement next year. We also have an assessment team that's meeting that's composed of teachers from each of the buildings, and we've invited our feeder districts into that as well. And so we are developing common unit summative assessments for this together. And then we've also created, we're working on creating a rubric, and they have been a part of that as well, our feeder districts. So we hope to kind of all be on the same page. And then this spring, we'll be training all of the Math 1 teachers on implementing this rubric. And so coming, next year we roll out Math 1 for, also again, as we said, at the middle school, so anybody who would have been in Algebra 1 in 7th grade or 8th grade will be in Math 1 at their middle schools, 62, 63, and 64 anyway. And Math 1 rolls out here. And then sort of this whole process then starts all over again with our Math 2 teachers. So they will be sort of planning for the following year, developing assessments, getting trained on the rubric, kind of that ongoing coaching and support piece for the Math 1 people. And then in 2021, we roll out Math 2, and then we sort of begin this process all over again for the Math 3 group, which should be, I'm sure, composed of teachers who have already taught Math 1 and Math 2, but we'll be creating assessments and doing this.
So this picture up here is from our MVP training, one of the days that we had everybody together. We all got matching t-shirts. They have our hashtag on it. We encourage teachers to tweet out, and we hope to continue that tweeting out using our hashtag #MathForward. We had our center schools also using that hashtag because we really wanted it as an opportunity to bring everybody together. So, any questions that you have for us?
I have one. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
We have on our agenda tonight, or I think it was in our packet, the Foundations of Problem Solving, which
Yes.
is that kind of supplemental support class, right?
Mhm.
So that's going to be offered at the same time
Yes.
as Math 1. So they'll
Yes.
kind of be taking, could it be offered in the summer, or is there something?
It's during the school year. So
Okay.
it would be a supplement to students taking Math 1 who might need additional support. Those would be some of those students who in the past would have taken the Algebra 1 Part A or the core math.
Right.
So this gives them an opportunity to be in the regular Math 1 class with all of their peers, because that's really important that they experience the curriculum with their peers. But the class gives them that extra support to prepare them to engage in some of those tasks.
And it's a full year.
And it is a full year. Now, if if we found out that a student was not needing the class, was doing very well without it, we would obviously make a change so that they would not be in the class.
Because it's 2 periods of math.
Right, right.
What's wrong with that, Carolyn?
We had a pretty robust discussion on this the other day, and, because we've done the 2-period of math thing in the past, not always with great success, but one of the things I feel good about right now is our multi-tiered system of supports is better than it's been. We've had really, really good success with a similar model in reading, where we've had measurable, and I mean dramatically measurable improvement. So we'll apply that same standard to this. And, you know, ideally what we will do is have as few kids that need that second math support class, and try to evolve our MTSS practices in math to try to, because the concern obviously is it's 2 periods of math. So if we can reduce that to 1, we really can do it.
And then just one follow-up, I'm sorry.
Sure.
The feeder districts, they're
Partner
kind of-
districts.
Partner. They're, you know, making changes to what they're doing as well?
Yes, so they're actually going to use the Mathematics Vision Project curriculum just like us. So when our students come and start Math 2 with us, they will have had a very similar Math 1 experience. And that's been great too, with them coming to our assessment team meetings. We've had a representative at every one of those. So we all have the same end goal for each module that we'll be completing as well.
That's great.
So I'm having a hard time understanding that, about the different levels. Because you talked about, like, if you have the, kind of the kids who have a harder time with math, and then the kids who that were coming in with Math 1.
Right.
Or so if they've already taken a Math 1 in, this is an easy question, I guess, Math 1 in 8th grade.
Right.
They're gonna come and take Math 2?
Yeah, so that won't change. It's just like we have now. We have students who start their high school math sequence in the partner
Okay.
schools because they're advanced. We'll continue to have that.
And then they'll go on to take Math 3, and then what will they do? Because obviously they're probably better in math. Will they take calculus then?
Yeah,
And-
similar to what we have now. They'll have pre-calculus, which we're actually in conversation about how pre-calculus might need to change a little bit based on students' experiences in Math 1, 2, 3. But it will still be a pre-calculus course, which will then prepare them for calculus, and they will have the opportunity to take that.
And there'll be more emphasis on statistics and probability in this?
There is
math
definitely
curriculum?
more emphasis spread throughout Math 1, 2, and 3. Something that we find a lot in curriculums, and we actually found it in this one too, is that they tend to put the statistics and probability at the very end. And so we've actually made a deliberate change to put that in a different spot in the curriculum because we want to make sure that it gets the emphasis that it deserves.
That's good. Then the second thing is with the lower achieving students, or the lower, because I had one.
Sure.
I have one. He's still taking that. I'm not kidding, he's in college now. But he had a very hard time with math. So he comes in having had a negative 8th grade experience, negative grammar school experience, then comes in at freshman year, and he would be in a class with high achieving students?
I mean, it'll be a mixed class, so it'll be with all the students who take Math 1.
So that's everybody, I mean,
No.
other than the high achieving people that were doing the math too,
Right.
right? So these are like, and I'm talking, I mean, there was a huge difference in
Well,
achieving, yeah, or not?
There's always very diverse groups of students in our classes, right? So in the past, there were basically 2 levels of that. There was the Algebra 1, and then there was the Algebra 1 Part A. The Algebra 1 Part A kids essentially got more time because they took Algebra 1 over 2 years. Now we're just embedding that additional time into the same year so that they can still experience the curriculum with their peers, but also still get the support that they need.
I think another important piece to that is that this particular curriculum is a spiral curriculum. So very often you would hear kids talk about, oh, I have to cram for this part of my final because I haven't had this for 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. The way this is designed, it continually brings that back, which is incredibly important in math because part of why kids lose their facility with it is they don't use it, so it goes away. And so this deliberate structure, and along with that support class, helps those kids to continually revisit and practice those skills that sometimes is atrophy because, yeah, I think I got it, took the test, I was okay, but really need that extra support. And in this case, it's ongoing.
A lot of the way in which it does that is, you know how I said earlier that mathematics is very visual? And when we typically think of traditional classroom, it's like today we're going to learn how to solve equations, and then tomorrow we'll learn how to do the graphs, and then the next day we'll learn how to manipulate expressions, and those feel very compartmentalized. This curriculum blends those constantly, and that's why it feels very spiral, because every type of function that you look at, you're finding all of those connections. the proficiency scale and rubric that we're creating also helps make all of those connections because it's pretty broad and overarching. So it communicates to students the way that we see mathematics, which isn't just about creating a graph with a linear function, but creating mathematical representations in general.
So I took Terry's question as, where are we putting the developmental math students, the ones who come in and aren't ready to achieve Math 1?
So in the past, all of our students have taken some version of Algebra 1, but at a slower pace. So that doesn't necessarily change, because now they're in Math 1 with additional support. So they've all started on a similar curriculum in the past as well.
I'm kind of concerned for the slower moving kids, I guess, just because, and I don't understand that they're gonna be in class with kids that are doing, could be 20 times more comprehension than these kids. I guess I'm just trying to think back on the many hours of.
Yeah, so I mean, 20 times, I wouldn't say 20 times is a good arbitrary number. You're gonna have students of different ability levels, but they're all kids who would start with us as Algebra 1 students in 9th grade. Now, to give you a comparison, 55% of the freshmen in Maine South have taken Math 1 or Math 2 before they even got there. So when we talk about disparity, we're not talking about a broad disparity necessarily.
Well, you're talking about 55%, I'm talking about the lower 20%.
Sure, but I guess what I'm saying is the disparity between your average 9th grader in Math 1 and a student who might need support, there is disparity. There will be a need for differentiation. There's obviously a need for this support class to help prepare them to access the material along with their Math 1 peers. But it creates an equity situation where by supporting them all together at 9th grade, those with extra help who need it, those who don't, getting kind of traditional help if they cross that, if it's needed, you're putting those students at the same level with the same ability to get further along in their math education, be better prepared for whatever they decide to do next than we're currently doing. Because what we're doing right now is saying, if you're that student who maybe gets it slower than everyone else or has a gap, we're basically saying to them, it's going to take you a year longer to get through things, which is going to put you at a 1-year disadvantage to your peers.
There's a whole psychological thing going on there too.
There's a lot to that, and then you talk about, how do I feel about my math ability? Well, I'm the kid who doesn't do math, and so I have to take algebra over 2 years, and so I don't get as far. When in reality, that student could be a pretty good math student, given the proper supports and headed in the right direction. So that's philosophically why we're headed down this particular path, because it really does speak to equity. And serving all of our kids who come in, from disparate backgrounds. We have kids who come through our systems, and we have kids who will show up in the summer from Guatemala. And we need to be able to serve them all equally. And we feel this gets us a little bit closer to that. And just to give you a comparison for reading, we exit about 80% of our students across the board who are in a similar scenario right now for reading, in the reading support. And that's because we looked at reading and started doing it differently a couple of years ago. And that's really what we're doing right now with math, is we're looking at math and thinking, how do we do this differently for these students? Not just more of the same as sort of like that double period or the period and a half. So we think that change in sort of approach, coupled with what we've seen in reading, can help to, we hope to see the same exact, if not better, attrition with students needing that support class over the course of 4 years.
So what if a kid one more thing. What if a kid flunks math, has to take it over the summer, but they don't have that support class?
Well, one of the things,
A real life scenario.
yeah, with respect to the way that we're designing the course and the competency framework that we're using, some of the conversations that we're having is, does the student really need to take the entire course over? So if the student truly didn't get a single thing and needs to take the entire course over, they probably should not take it in summer school. 6 weeks really is too fast anyway. But more likely, the student just has gaps, and therefore the summer school would be more personalized and just focus on filling those gaps so that then the student can move on with their peer.
It's got a couple of things here. First of all, Melissa, we've asked her this year to really take on the leadership role of the Math MCC, and we've been very, very pleased with the work that she's done. The entire group has gone down and engaged the elementary districts, knowing that you change anything, it's a big deal. You change math, it's a really big deal. And so we believe strongly, and I think, Melissa, you captured it really well when you described how the disparate parts of math, and Sean, to your point, are broken up. We know intuitively in other ways that it's a use it or lose it construct. So the ability to create a better way to learn math, and if we can do that even at the elementary level, Terry, the long play on this is that we will have more students conceptually understanding it, so that we have fewer and fewer. The goal is always to have, we're at historic low failure rates right now. And we want to continue to chase how low can we squeeze that. And then actually we're going to have an item here in a minute on the approval of courses that you're going to be really, really interested in. I know topically for you, you will be.
Just want to quickly add, the directions that you guys are facing to is very impressive and definitely worthwhile. Compared to international, global world of mathematics and so on, I think you guys have we have a very unique systems that you are facing a very positive challenges. Many other countries, including Asia, supposed to be good at mathematics and so on. It's far different. It's not fun at all. So when you mentioned that,
That joy part is
yeah,
there.
fun, and so
They're trying to change that though. It's trying to change.
they're trying, they are, but so definitely we are leading into the right focus way. But at the same time, the member Collins and she was asking, there are many students who is a lack of incapability of catching up with the mathematics standard kind of situation, and then they definitely will be needing a support of some kind of system so that we can pull the students to the moving to the next level. As our district school teachers, what and I think they probably did ask, what kind of a more realistic way of supporting those students who may be in need, and at the same time, as a community-wise or as a parents-wise, what can we do to support our kids who's lack of in the mathematics situation to move into the balancing it off?
Right. Well, I think some of it is just looking at mathematics differently, which is in the past. The way in which we focus so much on procedural skills plays to some students' strengths, but not all. And so when we really broaden our lens of what mathematics should be, which is that there's a lot of problem solving and conceptual understanding, when we think of it more visually, more students do have an in to the subject. And those students in the past have felt excluded because maybe they weren't as quick with those computations. And we've emphasized speed, and we've emphasized a lot of intricate computations. And so I think what we're going to do now is we're going to look at it a little bit more broadly, give students opportunities to have success in multiple areas of mathematics. And for our highest achieving students, they're still going to get to experience some of those really complex problems that for math teachers are fun just because they're really hard. But not all students have to do that. Some students are going to show their mathematics understanding by really being able to talk about a graph that it extends to the real world and actually be able to say something meaningful about that. And if they can't do a whole bunch of intricate computations, that's okay, because the world we live in now, they might not really need to do all those computations by hand. We also know that we're going to have some students going into a STEM field that need to know how to do all of those computations by hand because they need to understand where those are coming from. So it's really just finding that balance and giving the opportunity for some kids to be able to extend that, and then other kids to just see math in a different way.
Thank you, that's Great.
I
We're
only-
rooting for you.
I only have one more piece of important feedback. Neon yellow and white.
It didn't work out very well.
Does not, yeah, it really, so.
Wasn't as neon on my
That's
screen.
okay.
We're not gonna end with that, I'm gonna say it again.
Thank you.
Important feedback.
It's really good.
And I just
Very
want to
good.
recognize the math department chairs that are here with me today, because none of this would be possible without the leadership that they're doing.
That's been one of our trailblazers and MVP, and Beth, as always, as well. So we've got a whole host of math people here leading the way for us.
We look forward to hearing back from you on
It's
how
very
going.
exciting. to
Well,
see
here's the
this
other thing, we
change.
wanted to bring them here because there will probably be some other feedback points that you might get. This is like any change, this is not a linear change, A to B perfect. So just, we want to front load the board with the understanding that we're making a big change. And we believe that it will help us create better learning conditions for students in math. But we will have to learn as well. So it's all about all of us learning.
Continue to keep up the great work.
Okay. We will move along. Monthly update on FOIA requests, Ken?
5, they have been reprocessed, or they're in the process of being processed.
Can I have a motion on the consent agenda, items 7A through E? Thank you. Ginny, would you take the roll?
Austriaco.
Aye.
Bessler. Collins. Lee. Sullivan. Owen.
Aye. Could I have a motion on item 8? This is new course proposals, and it's, if I understand this correctly, waiving the first reading on all 3 of them. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Could I have a motion on item 8?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Sean?
So the first 2 courses we're going to talk about are dual credit, dual enrollment courses. I've spoken about this in the past where we'll kind of see these being a little bit more rolling. The request for waiving the first reading is really about timing, so that students can see these and select these courses as soon as the next few months, so they can be enrolled for next year in these courses. So the first one on your sheet, Math, a Human Endeavor. That's a partnership with Eastern Illinois University. A key to this course is that the entrance requirements are a 430 in evidence-based reading and writing and an overall GPA of 3.0. That is an access point for that. It's an access point for many of our students who are not looking to go on to a STEM career, perhaps in college, but are looking to fulfill their basic math requirement. So we would be advising our students who are maybe looking at a career in the humanities or something like that to seriously consider this course so that they could earn 3 credits in their senior year, in the semesterized course, to be able then to carry that to an Illinois university, as it is an IAI course, meaning it's transferable.
So Terry, this is the one where, we have given a lot of thought to what are the barriers. If you reduce to the 5 barriers that, stop our kids from getting their path, their education path, well, it's money, it's not having a clear vision of their why for going, but math is on the list, as you know, and I've got a son just same situation. So we believe strongly that this particular class can be that class if we support our students well, where they can get that required math class out of the way, go into where they're going. So it's really our intent here.
So, just real quick, that was one of my questions when I read this, so it's with Eastern Illinois University, but we're gonna have a teacher here associated with that.
Typical dual
along
credit
with it.
course.
Yes.
So it's,
So they will technically be an adjunct professor of Eastern Illinois. We're lucky in this district, we have a lot of our teachers with the credential necessary to teach college level courses. They become an adjunct professor, and we then coordinate with EIU and teachers on their end to allow our students to engage in that coursework.
We have a similar course with Oakton, but the cuts are much higher. We believe, and haven't been able to get them to have a wider access for students.
but it's our teacher teaching the class.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, so
It's a-
they don't have to depend on.
All of our
this-
all of our dual credit courses
Okay,
are
all right.
are taught in our building.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
I
Except
think
for the
it's
next
great.
one, but that's an
The
online
online
course.
That's an online course, and yeah, we do have a few of those forays.
So the next course is Intro to Criminal Justice. This course is a foundational course. You can see this is offered in partnership with Oakton. It's an Oakton professor on the other end of this. What we would commit is a teacher liaison, just to help make sure that they can help transcript it on our end, grades and things of that nature. As you can see, this course nests into the Associate of Applied Science and Law Enforcement, or the 30-credit law enforcement certificate that they can gain at Oakton. So this is a really minimal commitment on our end as far as FTE or personnel, and gives access to our students of an online course, which we'll offer off schedule, meaning that they can enroll in this course and that the access to our faculty will happen outside of their typical course day, meaning in the morning, when you can come in at 7:30 and have that hour time, you could check in with our teachers and things like that. It's very similar to the way we're running our virtual PE program right now.
Is this also a semester?
This is a semester course, and we plan to offer it both first and second semester next year.
But this is continuing, one of the focuses of Sean's work in his role is to really help us build out these multiple career pathways. And this will, there'll